she was not the biggest fan of me being around, swimsuit models and influencers and very attractive women all the time. Some of my female friends have become even better friends with her. It's almost like she stole many of my female friends, right? Because she's much more social than I am, and like I've introduced her to all my female friends, and now she's better friends with many of them than I am. She sees them more often than I do. She talks to them more than I do. I'm like, damn.
Welcome to Steel Success. Interviews with felons of flourishing about how they stole thriving lives from the authorities of conformity, comfort and fear. I'm Rob Farker, your host, and in each chat I'll find out how my guest made the bold moves that most people avoid, so that the rest of us can break out of our comfort zones, grift the rules of polite society, and think a little more criminal. Let's get stuck in. Today's felon of flourishing does a pretty good job of fooling the authorities into thinking that he's a solid citizen. By day, he operates in academia. He's a historian and military strategist, studying the battles, campaigns, and decision-making of the past. That said, he's starting to draw a little bit of heat due to a suspicious pattern of thrivery. Folks have been ratting him out as showing up at red carpets and VIP events in Mexico City and beyond, hosting, networking, and moving with precision through high-status social environments. The cops reckon he might just be taking the principles of war and strategy that he talks about in academia and applying them not just to history, but to modern social life. He's also been identified as an active operator within the Men of Action program, working alongside other coaches to help men build stronger social circles, grow their presence, and navigate those environments more effectively. The man at the center of this operation is Karim Gonzalez, historian, strategist, red carpet host, and coach of modern social dynamics. Karim, welcome to the Steel Success Podcast.
Rob, thank you for having me. Man, that's a great introduction. I don't know that I can live up to that. It makes me sound so much more interesting when you frame it like that.
Well, I mean, let's face
thank
it.
you, man.
You're welcome. You're an interesting dude, or else I wouldn't have had you on the show. But tell me a little bit about your initial forays into acts of thrivery. When in your life did you first realize that a lot of the rules that people tend to follow every day are kind of optional and don't even have to apply?
Man, I would say for me, my journey of self-improvement started 12 years ago? It was 2014. Yeah, 2014. That's when my journey of self-improvement started. I would honestly say, using those matrix analogies, I was plugged into the matrix before that. Just like everyone else. Just because your upbringing and you grow up with this sort of beliefs about the world and how things operate, and you don't really question it. It's almost like you're indoctrinated into it as you grow up, and you don't really question everything or anything at all. And for me, that moment was really 2014. That's when, as most of us, as many of us, what wakes up men is rejection, right, from women in particular. That's where I had my first big breakup that crushes all of us when you're young, and the love of your life, you think, or what you think is the love of your life, escapes. And that really crushed me, obviously, at that time. But that, it was one of those blessings in disguise, because it set me on the path of self-discovery. And it's like, I want to understand why this happened and how can I prevent it from happening again. And that just got me into the journey of self-improvement. And here we are 12 years later. But that was the moment I realized that I could sort of take control of my life. And I always remember very vividly that the thing that got me really excited is like, I was almost thankful that relationship sort of destroyed me, because I was like, okay, I'm rock bottom now. I'm completely destroyed. But the good thing about that is that I could rebuild myself in any shape that I want. It's almost like a Lego. I could build it up however I want. And that was a very empowering thought at the time to understand that I could create the life that I wanted. So yeah, that was 2014. That was the year for me.
Isn't it an interesting thing? Sometimes we need these big moments to realize the ability that we have to actually take our own lives and not go with what everyone else says it should be, take some risks and, find out who we actually want to be in life and how to create that. Can you remember the first moment, or at least a key moment, when you took an action where you were almost waiting for somebody to go, yeah, no, sorry, Karim, can't do that, or you can't be here, or you can't do that here?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I would say that was. I would say that was when I was living in the UK. That was when I was living in London and when I was doing my masters in war studies, when I would do my war stuff out there in the UK. I would definitely say it was one of those moments where I would go out. I would go out and try to socialize. You know, we were doing the whole pickup thing back then, and for me, the biggest moments, like one of the first moments that I recall, where I sort of gave myself permission, was trying to get on like some of the VIP areas, or like some of the special areas in like a nightclub or a place like that, where I was just kind of waiting for someone to rattle me out, just like, hey, you can't be here, you don't belong here, where's your wristband, where's your ticket, right? But then I sort of that's when I sort of embraced the idea of like, hey, you know, like if I act like I belong here, maybe they'll buy it, and they kind of did, you know. And many times I was able to put myself in situations and places and areas where I had no business being there, but just because I acted the part, it sort of manifested in that sense, and it's almost like it became a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know.
Yeah.
So that was an exciting one, yeah.
Well, I am curious to ask then, especially from the perspective of all of us wannabe felons of flourishing out there, what
Yeah.
are the steps that you took to basically look as though you absolutely belonged in a VIP area at a night?
What are some of the steps that I took? I mean, you know, it's interesting because I think as someone who's very logical and very, you know, very analytical in that sense, that's how I used to break down things. It's like, what are the steps to follow? But I think that was actually the key in that moment. Is like I stopped thinking in steps and I started thinking more in intuition or perception. It's like, it's weird to explain, and I hate to use these sort of concepts because they sound so vague and so ambiguous. But it's almost like I started developing the ability to feel these things out, and to feel like calibration. Maybe that's a good word. I started to get calibrated. But that there's no steps to how you get calibrated. It's something that you sort of have to feel. Sometimes it feels like, okay, I feel like I can push this a little bit more, or I feel like I need to take a step back. But it's very much something that it's a calibration that was developed through just being exposed to it. But you know, the big revelation for me is that not everything in life required a checklist and a 12-step process to be able to accomplish. I eventually found out, hey, I could develop my own intuition and my own calibration, and I think that's also where I started developing a little bit more of my social and emotional intelligence, which I absolutely lacked for most of my upbringing. Zero emotional intelligence, zero social intelligence. I'm a very introverted guy by nature. I was kind of awkward back in high school, loads of social anxiety, and so I never really developed those skills and that sort of calibration. So that was a very interesting moment where I realized that I don't need to have a checklist for this. I can actually navigate this with my own sort of intuition and sense of calibration, you know.
It's an interesting thing to think about, because in my mind, there would have been things like clothing, and I guess you mentioned it in terms of calibration, but mannerisms. But I guess that's sort of a thing where you just have to spend time in people's presence and watch them and be cool enough that you can absorb what they're doing, that you can
Yeah.
adopt enough of it yourself without overthinking all the specific movements. But and it also kind of, you know, we were talking about checklists and what have you, and there's a bit of me, you know, looking at my clipboard of questions here and going, oh, well, maybe I just need to throw that out and
Right.
wing it a bit more. But there is, I guess, without necessarily taking a checklisty angle, but, and maybe you've even just answered this, but uh, on the battlefield of life, what do you reckon most people get wrong about the strategy that they take?
Man, this is going to be a little bit of recency bias because this is just something that I've been reading a lot about recently, but I think it's a big one, man, because this is something that I've struggled with for a long time. It's one of those things that seem to have no perfect solution, right? And what I'm talking about is when it comes to the big decisions in life, anything from what you know, let's say, what major should I pick in college? Who should be my partner? Should I marry or not? Should I have children or not? Where should I live? Like these, like the big decisions, the big questions in life. As someone who's, and I guess we men are probably more guilty of this because we're very super very process oriented and very problem solving, analytical, sort of direct mind. And the thing is, we're trying to solve the problem. It's like, what's the right choice here? What's the right choice? Should I have children or not? Should I get married or not? Should I live in this country or that country? Should I pursue this career or that career? We're always looking for the right choice. And what I realized lately is that, and this was a deep hole that I went into through. I ended up in the deep corner of the internet that talks about existentialist philosophy, and it was a very revelational sort of perspective that I got from the famous Danish philosopher Soren Kierkegaard. In his book Either Or, he talks exactly about this conundrum that we humans face, and he says, and I love the way he put it, because he says, the biggest lie, or the most cruel trap that free will ever gave us, is the illusion of the right choice. The idea that there is a right choice, that if we just dig enough, or if we just find the right configuration, we're gonna make a right choice, and then life is gonna be perfect, and I'm gonna be happy, and it's all gonna be great. And as men who we are so used to solving problems, we approach life in that way. And the thing I love about him was, there was this idea that said, stop trying to solve life. Stop trying to solve life and start living life. And, I'm not going to go deep into his whole philosophy. You guys can read that. But I think that's one thing that we sort of get wrong, especially early in life when we're supposed to make these big decisions, is the idea that we're going to make the right, that there is a right choice. There is no right choice, because what you realize is exactly what Kierkegaard mentions in the book. Is he has actually a very funny way of putting it. He says, the reason why you shouldn't worry about this is because if he talks about marriage, for example, he says, if you get married, you're going to regret it. But if you don't get married, you're also going to regret it. If you have children, you're going to regret it. But if you don't have children, you will also regret it. And he just starts going down, and he's like, the point he's trying to bring is there are no pain-free choices. Every choice you make is going to entail some downside, is going to entail some sacrifice and an opportunity cost. So you trying to find the perfect choice that is just going to be ideal and it's not going to entail any sacrificing of anything, it's not going to happen. So that's a big thing that I think many of us, me included, get wrong. Just the idea that we're trying to solve life, and in the process we forget to live life.
Yeah, look, as the kids say nowadays, I feel so attacked. I do. It's like, it feels like you've just read out a good chunk of my life story as well.
Mate, reading existentialist philosophy is it takes courage to read that thing, because it gives you some tough swings at your life choices, but I think they're good.
Yeah,
we kind of have to face these realities to navigate it better.
Indeed. Well, I would like you to start taking me through that period of your life, utter devastation and heartbreak in 2014, to the current moment here in 2026 as we record this. What were the changes that you started making? And what were the things that you particularly were doing consistently that started paying off for you? I guess while it is tempting to also look at academia, it's also really that thrust of you creating your whole life, particularly the more personal aspects of it.
Yeah, that's an easy one. I actually had this conversation with a friend of mine when I was in London last year, and I met with this friend of mine. She's a like ultra successful girl. She's one of my most successful female friends. I mean, I think she works at she's one of the head of marketing for like Amazon in Europe, and she was runner-up for Miss Germany, like super successful, like ultra successful girl. And we were having breakfast, and again we were talking about life and stuff. And I told her, I remember I brought it up, and I said, you know what? Sometimes I'm a little bit worried that I have it. I think like I have it too easy. Like sometimes it feels like I have things too easy. Like I see people having all these issues, and I look at my life, and I'm worrying if I'm kind of thinking if I'm doing something wrong, or like why is it that I'm just like cheerful and happy and I just enjoy life. And sure, I have my problems like everybody does, right? But in general, I feel like life is kind of easy. And the reason why I think that is because as men, we have also this kind of impulse to create virtue out of sacrifice, right? It's like if you're not suffering, it's almost like if you're not suffering, you're not growing, or if you're not suffering, you're doing something wrong. Like it's also this delayed gratification. It's like suffer first, play later, right? So we have this sort of ideas that is like if things are going too well, there's probably something off, right? And I was kind of struggling with that, and at the time, like a year ago, and then she gave me she asked me a few questions that to answer your question really took me back to the journey that I've been to in the last 10, 12 years. And she said, Kareem, yes, it's true. You might feel like life is really good and everything's kind of coming together, but the mistake that you're making is that you're forgetting how you got here. Look at your life and look at the things that you have done to get here. This didn't just occur to you. You built this day after day. And then that reminded me of a very famous quote that I read that is very popular on the internet, which is hard choices, easy life. Easy choices, hard life. And we started talking about that. And I was like, if I had to answer your question, if I had to identify what's the thing that has really built me into who I am and having, a situation as good as I have it for myself and me being so fulfilled and happy as I really am, it's because I made the hard choices. I always made the hard choices over the easy choices. And what does that look like is, waking up early every day to go to the gym. That's a hard choice, man. I hate going to the gym. I envy the people who are like, oh yeah, man, like the gym is my me time and that's my time to relax and enjoy. I'm like, no, bro, I hate going to the gym because I train really hard.
Strange people.
So I'm like, that's a hard choice for me, right? Going to bed early to make sure I look after my sleep, that's a hard choice. Eating healthy, that's a hard choice. Waking up every morning, man, I'm 7 a.m., I'm hitting the books. That's the first thing I do every morning. I wake up, I brush my teeth, I wash my face, and I head out to my living room and I get at least 1 hour of reading and studying. That's a hard choice. I could just stay in bed, right? Working on my taking some risks in terms of I didn't want to take like corporate jobs because that's just like a culture I never want to take part of. So that's a hard choice, realizing that, hey, I want to be a freelancer. It's like, well, that's great freedom, but freelancer is also very, like, job security is really bad when you're a freelancer. So that's a risk that I took. It's a hard choice. So then when I started tracing back the last 10 years, I'm like, man, my life has been full of hard choices. So no wonder things seem easy today because I've done the hard choices, right? So I know that's like maybe a bit of a general way of answering your question, but I think it encapsulates the principle behind it is if you make the hard choices and you prioritize, there's a concept that I really found very interesting. I mean, you probably relate to this. If anybody who has been deep into the literature of self-improvement and self-help, eventually you realize that once you read enough, you pretty much read everything that industry has to offer. And then it's just kind of repeating the same thing. And then I think it was Naval Ravikant in one podcast where he said, he summarized it better than anybody ever could. He said, man, when you spend years reading self-improvement and self-help, you can actually summarize all of that in one sentence, which is prioritize the long term over the short term. And I'm like, that's actually a very good summary of all of self-improvement literature. Prioritize the long term over the short term. And then I realized that whether consciously or not, that's what I had been doing is do the hard choices, do the hard thing, and eventually that's going to lead to an easy life in the long run. I was optimizing for the long term. So yeah, I mean, I think that's how I would answer that question as a general approach is make the hard choices now because that's going to give you the easy life later.
Indeed. Going from the general to the specific, can you think of a particular choice, and from the sounds of it, there were many across the years, where you felt like you did have an easy option or more a tempting option, and you explicitly chose a more complex or more taxing, more of it? It's easy to say hard option, but yeah, more stressful, more that required more commitment and more work from.
Yeah, 100%. I can specifically think of one a couple of years ago. At university, I've been teaching at university for 8 years now. I started teaching when I was like 27, which was super young. And they offer me tenured. They offer me a tenured position, which is like one of the most coveted positions in academia. Like it's essentially job security for life. Like you getting a tenure, like you becoming a professor, like a tenured professor and becoming a full professor, man, like that's essentially a job for life. You get paid really well. You get to teach, you do your research. I mean, it's one of the most coveted jobs in academia. And I got offered that at my university a couple of years ago, and I turned it down. And everyone thought I was crazy. But the reason I turned it down is because, sure, I was going to get paid really well and job security, and I basically had like life sorted out. But what was the price I was going to have to pay for it? My freedom and my flexibility. Because now that's a full-time job. I have to be at university 9 to 5 every week with only 1 or 2 weeks a month 1 or 2 weeks a year of holidays and vacation. I'm like, no, want to work. Why? Because I that's not me. There are things like my projects, my passions, the things I want to do, the impact that I want to have in the world, the things I want to pursue require me to have location independence. I need to be able to travel, make income remotely, so I can actually travel and do the things. And man, I thought that through for weeks, because I was like, bro, you're really about to turn down one of the most coveted job offers in your industry. Are you sure you want to do this? And I thought it through, but I was like, I didn't do it because it was a hard choice. It was because it was it was a congruent choice. It was a congruent choice with me.
It was the right choice for
me. Yeah, it was the right choice for me, and I don't regret it. And in these last 2 years, it's been ups and downs, but ultimately, I don't quite regret it. I mean, I'm sure there are some benefits that I could have now that I don't, but ultimately, I'm happy with that decision. So yeah, sometimes I'm trading security for freedom, and to me that was a worthy trade-off.
Oh. All right, now before we started this recording, we did talk about the tone of it and the questions, and sort of said, we'll try and keep the geeking out to the minimum. But I think right now is the best place to start geeking out, because Karim, tell me a little bit about your fascination with, and it is, I do have this right, it is military history that you are particularly, and specifically, I hate to use the broad term, but ancient military history, because at least having seen.
Yeah, it's not just ancient one, because ancient one would be like Greece and Rome, but I'm really interested in all eras, whether it's ancient, medieval, modern, contemporary battlefields, the world wars, and even the modern, or like the current contemporary warfare is pretty interesting to me. I'm just interested in war. And it's funny because when I was doing my masters in the UK, people would ask me, what do you study? I'm like, oh, I do war studies. And they would be like, why do you want to do war? Like, why are you a warmonger? Like, what do you want to? Why do you want to promote war? I'm like, no, that's not what we're doing. We're trying to understand war better so we can, actually mitigate it and prevent it and learn how to navigate it better. But it could be a bit of a because I don't know if you knew this, but in the field of security studies, you have war studies and peace studies. So people think peace studies are peaceful people, and war studies are the warmongers. But it's a funny thing that funny joke they run at us. But no, I mean, my fascination, mate, I mean, honestly, it started when I was very little. Usually, funny enough, with video games. I was video games are what got me interested in history early on. Your classic Age of Empires and Total War and StarCraft, and like those early video games that I was playing as a kid. I just developed this sort of fascination for war and conflict and history, and obviously during my teenage years that sort of grew, and then I started doing my own research and reading about it, and I just started becoming fascinated with the stories, with the characters as well. I'm a big student of some of the greatest leaders in history, many of whom are military leaders as well. And I just started developing this fascination. At first, it was more of the during my teenage years, I guess, in my early 20s, it was more a fascination for the, it's a term that Tolkien actually coined. Well, I don't know if he coined it, but he used it. It's the heroic romanticism of war. There's a part of war. There's a romantic side of war. The heroism, the sacrifice. You can romanticize war a little bit from that perspective. And I was very drawn to that. I was very drawn to that warrior ethos and that sort of heroism that comes through stories of war, right? And that's early on what drew me into it. And then later on, as I became a little bit older and matured a little bit more, I mean, I'm still fascinated by it, and I still cry, when I watch the Charge of the Rohirrim and the Lord of the Rings movie. That always brings me to tears, because there's always that heroism, right? Is that sense of the war ethos, that doom charge, where it's like it's all about sacrifice and dying for your loved ones. And especially for men. I mean, because that's a big part of the male identity and masculinity. And I think Michael actually says it, and I very much agree with him. It's like the greatest display of masculinity is willing to sacrifice for the ones you love.
And
right?
Of course, to interrupt very quickly, by Michael, we are talking about the guy I like to call the Lex Luthor of life lasting, Michael Sartain.
That's funny.
Yes.
Yeah. Especially when he starts losing his hair. So, yeah.
Not with all the testosterone he's on.
Right. God bless TRT. So that's what drew me a lot, and still draws me very much to it. But now I've also been what I started doing a few years ago, which built a completely different connection between me and this interest, was I started actually visiting battlefields before before COVID actually. My relationship with history and war and battles was merely through video games, books, and screens. The moment you actually step on these battlefields, the moment you actually go visit them, the moment you're standing there and you're seeing what they saw, and you sort of experience what it's like to be in these places, and you see the remnants of some of these battles, man, that completely transformed me. And I have to admit this. I mean, I don't know if this is good to admit or not, but I'm usually like a very stern guy. I can't explain why. I break into tears most times when I go into battlefields. I don't know why. I can't explain it. Like, I start walking battlefields, and obviously these are battles that I know very well. I've studied them for years, and just being there, I don't know what it is, but I just start like tearing up. But like walking these places, right? Like, there's some kind of connection that I have to these places, and so that's really what has been my relationship lately with these battlefields, and now, of course, the heroic part and all that, but now I also see it as a little bit of I want to almost it's a way of honoring and respecting the sacrifices that people, that men usually did at these places, and I want to tell those stories. I want to bring them to life, and that's why I think visiting these places and understanding these places and be able to recreate these battles and document them better, and just be able to tell the stories of what happened in these places, that fills me with great excitement. And it's one of the biggest projects that I really want to pursue going forward, is to be able to bring these closer to people. Because unfortunately, I think most people's idea of battles is Hollywood. It's just like a mob of people just like clashing one another, and everything is just this bloodthirsty, this bloodthirsty encounter with, like, it's almost like this meaningless waste of blood, and you definitely see that narrative when you don't fully understand what's going on. But man, when you read when you really start understanding what happens in these battles, and you read the accounts of the experiences of what it's like to be in one of these things, man, I mean, I truly think that going back to what you just said about the phrase that Michael uses, I think this is this is kind of the biggest honor that I could pay to the men who did the ultimate sacrifice, which is to sacrifice and die for that which they believe in, or who they loved or protect, right? So yeah, I think that's a little bit of the connection with that.
It makes me think of the poem that is recited every Anzac Day, which, as we record this, is in a couple of weeks here. Are you familiar with that one, by the way, or
the Anzac one? Is it the World War One?
Yeah, World War One. The Beach of Gallipoli, and it's been
Gallipoli,
interesting. I actually went to the local war memorial in Sydney, and there is a common, perhaps because Australia likes having sort of an underdog reputation, this idea that the battle at Gallipoli was a loss. And then I was speaking with one of the guys who worked at the war memorial, who actually said, there was actually a lot more success at that fight. But it's what that wonderful line, at the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. And
yes,
I mean, to my knowledge, I don't live near any battlefields myself, but I can only, that pilgrimage in a way to a site where a battle took place, and just being
I'm actually going to Gallipoli this year. I'll be there in like a couple of months, so I'll send you a photo when I'm in Gallipoli.
Please do. No, I'm
going to be there.
I know there is usually a contingent of Australians out there. There is sort of like a I think it's gotten a bit more contentious of late, but there is usually a dawn service on the 25th of April. Yeah, which is Anzac.
Yeah, they do the services. Because I've been to Normandy as well, the beaches of Normandy, Omaha Beach and Sword and Juno and all that. And then if you go east from the beaches where the landings happen, there's the cemetery. There's the American cemetery, but then within this cemetery, there's a section for the Canadians and like the Commonwealth, right? The Canadians, the Australians, the New Zealanders, the South Africans, like all the different nationalities. And they do sort of identify the different sections within the graveyard. So yeah, there's definitely that identification to the specific nationalities that fought in the landings.
Now, to kind of change the subject a bit, there is this other side of your life at the moment, which is how I came across you. You becoming a coach of men in terms of improving their social lives and, well, their lives overall. How did that come to be?
Well, because I was just one of you at some point. I mean, I joined this program, 5 years ago. I think it was 2022. Yeah, okay. 4 or 5 years ago.
I have to ask, how did you find out about it?
I already knew Michael from back in the pickup days. One of the biggest companies at the time who was offering dating services and stuff. Michael was friends with one of the coaches for that company, and then that's where I sort of became aware of Michael. Like I saw him in some of the videos, and I saw him giving talks here and there. And I always liked him. I was drawn to him also because of his military background, and he very much transmitted that sort of martial kind of trust and strength that I very much admire, right? And I always thought of him. I always liked it, and then I started following him on Instagram, and the reason why I sort of was drawn to him is because Michael was the only person that I follow on Instagram of all these dating coaches that you would see out there. He was the only one that was actually showing the things that everyone else was telling me they were doing, but I just never saw the evidence. I'm like, okay, you're telling me this, you're telling me that, but where's the evidence? I don't see it. And Michael was the only guy that I went to his Instagram, and the more I kept scrolling, the more evidence that just came up. And I was like, I can't argue against this. Like I can't, and there's no need to convince me. Like I can see that the guy I don't know what he's doing, but whatever he's doing is working. So yeah. that's how I kind of came across him. And then during COVID, or right after COVID, like I said, 2022, I think I saw the ads because I was following him, and then he started promoting it. And I saw this Men of Action thing, and I was like, oh, let me look into that. And then I kind of went into the rabbit hole, and I was like, yeah, this looks good. Like this is exactly, if this is what he did, if this is how he got the results that I've been seeing for the last 5 years, I want in as well. I want to learn how he's doing this. Yeah. So that's how I signed up, and thankfully I did really well in the program. I think part of why I did really well was actually because of COVID. Because funny enough is because it was so challenging to build a social life during those times. That's why we had to sort of go above and beyond to really make it work. Like because the challenge was greater, the lessons were also stronger. Yeah. And I pulled it off, man. I pulled it off. It took me a while. It took me like over a year to really say that I was getting some sort of good traction. It really took me a while, but eventually it took off, and I started having a social life more abundant than I ever had before, especially for someone who's like very introverted and again like all nerdy and stuff. I was just this idea that I could become the heart of the party and the local celebrity was just completely an anathema to me. I was like, that would never be me until it was. Right. Yeah. And then because I did really well, thankfully they gave me the opportunity to come on board as a coach, and obviously I took it without second thought, because I've always had that I want to help other guys accomplish the transformation that I accomplished. I know, because I know what this did for me and how better it made my life. I want other guys to also be able to experience that. So that's why I didn't think it twice to jump on here. And yeah, I love it, man. I love what I do. It's a dream job for me to be doing this.
So, and it sounds like you've really got these two sort of income streams set up for yourself. There is your ongoing work as a professor of military history,
yeah,
and Men of Action. So I hate to use that dreaded word balance, which I'm learning more and more is not a great concept, but at least it's something that the rest of the most of us can kind of hang some sort of concept of managing your life on. How do you combine coaching people and all the work you do in military history and all these wonderful Instagram reels that you do with, of course, then outside that, having a thriving social?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, man. I think about this quite often. I mean, I think part of it is because I'm really good at building systems. I'm a very I'm a very organized guy, extremely organized. I mean, if I show you my Google Calendar, you'll freak out, right? Like it's so everything is so well organized. It's color coded. I'm never late to anything. Like I just have a sense of organization and structure. Again, I don't know if this is something I've learned growing up, or it's just a bit of a talent, or a bit part of my personality, just like industriousness, right? Which is like a personality trait of people that are very like industrious in that sense. So I don't know what it is, but that comes easy to me, and it's incredibly helpful because it helps me. It allows me to tackle all these different things at once. And I think it's also, I have a little bit of an ability to compartmentalize things. You know, meaning I can switch my attention and tasks very quickly without having the previous thing sort of bleed into the next one, right? So like right now I could be talking to you, right? And actually, there are people in my living room right now. My girlfriend is in the living room. A friend of mine is in my living room. Two of my female friends are in my living room. There's a bit of a party out there right now. And here, I'm talking to you, and I'm being very logical about this. And I have the ability, as soon as we get off this call, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be Mr. Social, right? And it's that sort of, it's sort of that compartmentalization ability that really helps to manage all these different tasks, that some of them are related and some of them are completely unrelated to one another, right? So that's really useful to have, but I would say the biggest thing is really the organization. I mean, it's just about, I use very simple systems. I mean, back when I was, this is something that I've helped some of the guys in MOA as well. Back when I was doing my master's, I just started devouring all the productivity literature that you could find, precisely for that reason, right? It's like, how can I make the most out of my time? And, you know, I've tried every system under the sun, but ultimately I found out that simple is best. The simpler the system, the better it is. So it's really, for me, it's just like a calendar, a religious Google Calendar, some alarms when I need to set the alarms. Like I would say, like the biggest thing for me has been like every Sunday I sit down for 15 minutes and I just prepare my week. What am I going to do? What needs to be done? And I time block it on my calendar, and 90% of it gets done. It's never 100%, and that's fine. There's flexibility imbued into the system, but 90% of it gets done, and that's how I'm able to get so much more done. And it's pretty simple, but it's the habit. It's ultimately the habit.
I suspect that's something I am going to have to implement sometime very soon. I mean, I've got bits and pieces all over the place. I've got paperwork. I mean, I finally bought myself a shredder a few months ago because I thought, all right, there is so much stuff here, and I want to get rid of it in a way that, you know, permanently destroys it, and it doesn't wind up being something that someone could pull out of my garbage.
Become a hoarder.
Maybe extra paranoid, but still. But yeah, just like stop hoarding. In a way, I don't think I'm a capital H hoarder, but I still know that I hang on to a lot of stuff that I don't really need to hang on to, and it's time to do that hard work of just letting go. But then it's like, yeah, because I know that I could be doing a better job of getting good and important things done on a more regular basis and build up that trust in myself. So yeah, I think that's in my near future. So you know, I mean, they do say that no battle plan survives contact with the enemy. This is true. What's the most adaptable that you've had to be recently?
But you see that quote, I think that was from Eisenhower, probably Eisenhower, maybe. Or General Petraeus, probably. But I would say what you just said, what the thing we just talked about, is a good example of that. I have the plan for my week, but it never happens that everything goes as planned during the week, right? So in fact, probably, and you see this quite a bit in military strategy as well, is Napoleon was really famous for this, in the sense that the reason why the way he communicated with his marshals and the way he picked his marshals was particularly for this reason, because Napoleon would have an overall plan. It's like, this is what I want to do. This is the plan that we have for this battle, this campaign. But because I know that everything is going to go different than what we expect, I need you guys, my marshals of France, to be able of independent command. I need to trust that you will know how to respond and adapt to these situations, because we cannot hope or expect that the plan is ever going to go as planned. So it's almost like you have to account for what the most famous military strategist Clausewitz called the friction. friction is essentially this unpredictability that is inevitably going to happen in military affairs, right? But it also applies to life in general. The friction is all the unexpected things that happen, and you need to be able to, instead of becoming a better planner, you need to become better at adapting. That is actually the more valuable skill. Not plan better, but be able to adapt better, right? And to Napoleon's dismay, most of his marshals were incapable of independent command. There's really only a couple that were able to make good decisions on their own. Without Napoleon, many of them were lost. But yeah, that goes to show that it's the adaptability that's probably the more powerful trait, rather than the ability to plan everything in detail at the beginning.
Now, there is a commonly held perception out there that every lovable rogue is always defying the law on their own, whereas I'm pretty sure the truth is that every grifter and grafter has a crew behind them, helping them get where they want to go. So can you tell me a little bit about the teammates in your ongoing effort to commit thrivery, to maintain this wonderful life that you've got, and how you help each other out?
Yeah, that's great. I would say some of the biggest mentors that I've had that have sort of held my hand in this journey, many of them don't actually live here, right? Like, they're not physically here. It's been like online stuff. Michael being one of them, for example. I mean, obviously he's been a great mentor of mine, and many of the mentors that I had has been like an online relationship, right? And funny enough, I think it was I forget exactly where I heard this from, but it's some of my greatest mentors are dead, in the sense that some of the people that I've learned the most from are people who are already dead, but thankfully, through books, we can still have conversations with them and learn from them, and there's so much that I've learned from these people, right? Now, in terms of the teammates and the sort of the people that I have around me, I would say, for me, I'm someone that the way my teammates work is through support, not so much through advice, but through support. And in the sense that what makes me, I don't know how to make this not sound sort of arrogant or self-aggrandizing, but let's put it like this: like, I'm really good at solving my own problems, right? Like, I'm really good at it. I usually can figure out most things either by myself, or I know who to ask, like the mentors that could give me some help, right? Like, I usually have a path forward to know how to fix something. But the thing where I struggle, and where my family and friends have become incredibly useful or incredibly valuable, is also in just having that support, knowing that I have a group of people that if everything goes to shit, they've got my back, and that I'm never going to be, that they're not going to let me, they're not going to let me completely drop dead, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting, because that's when we were talking about earlier about the big breakup that I had like a decade ago. That's kind of what happened. They never gave me any advice that helped me sort of get out of that hole. All of that was through a lot of, again, reading, reflection, talking to mentors. My friends and family never really gave me any sort of advice to get me out of there. But I would not have gotten out of there without them, because they were just there. They were the shoulders for me to cry on. They were the people who were just willing to listen, even if I already told them the same thing 10 times. So they were the support network that I needed to be able to, it's almost like they're the support that I need. I can figure things out by myself, but I need that support to know that I have people who have my back no matter what. And that has been absolutely instrumental. Like, I would not have been able to dig my hole out of that if I hadn't had that support. So yeah, I mean, I think that's for me the biggest thing that this group of people have served.
Yeah. I guess it's as much as we can learn from books, a book can't put you up on its couch.
Right. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Now, I do want to talk a little bit more about this thriving life that you have built for yourself, because we did sort of touch on it a bit in the intro, and through having contact with yourself through MOA, I know some of it. I mean, you've hosted, and you do host on a regular basis, swimsuit competitions. There was something else that I was going to mention, and suddenly it's just completely vacated my brain. But you've
Red
got
carpets.
the red carpets. Yes, you do all the red
Yep.
carpet chats, which is something I'm working on emulating. So tell me a little bit more about those. Toot your own horn for a little bit. Talk big about your life.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that was the reason why I fell in love also with MOA, because the way I want to build my social life is through again through a little bit of those systems. And honestly, I'm not a big fan of like going to nightclubs. I kind of hate nightclubs and staying up late and the loud music. Like I don't enjoy those environments. I will go to those places because I understand the value of going.
It's like the gym,
it's
as
just
you were
not
saying
something I
earlier
enjoy.
on.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like I don't like going to the gym, but I'm going to go because I know the benefits of the gym. Right. So for me, I always wanted to build sort of like an effortless social life, right? Because and that's really why I started when I was looking at all the options. I said, okay, how can I build a system that will give me a thriving social life? But that, of course, I'm going to front load whatever amount of work needs to be front loaded. But that eventually, once the thing is built, I'll be able to sort of just lay back and enjoy the fruits of the labor, right? And that's when I tried different things. I did my photo shoots. I did I hosted events, but ultimately the winner was the red carpet, and it's a beautiful setup. It's a beautiful setup because it's one of those things that all I have to do is I just show up to the events. And I set up my whole thing, my lights, my camera, the red carpet. I just set up the whole thing, and then the VIPs, all the VIPs, the sponsors, the models, the influencers, they get brought to me. Like I don't have to do anything. They actually bring them to me to be interviewed. So it's like a great position to be in. And I think I've told you guys some of these in the calls. I can't like it's been so long since I've like invited people to come to these things. Because I know I'm gonna meet everyone who's anyone at these events because they're gonna bring them to me to be interviewed. So I was like, man, this is such a beautiful setup. Like I getting to meet all the important and cool people, and I don't even have to do anything for it. Like I just need to show up, set up my thing, and then they're gonna be brought to me. And then obviously it's up to me to do a good job, obviously doing good interviews, making connections with these people, following up with them, right? But it's just been such a wonderful way of building for someone like, and again, as men, we tend to get so focused on work and our professional life and business and making money and all that. But it's something like an area of my life that I knew that I never wanted to neglect. I never wanted to be, and even with my relationship, when I started dating my girlfriend, I told her, obviously I was already in MOA, and I told her, hey, I'm involved with this thing, and this is what it's about. And I want to bring you into it because I don't want to ever to be the kind of couple that gets so sort of go so inwards into themselves that they sort of abandon their social life, and it just becomes you and me, and then we don't really have any friends, we don't go out, like we just become encapsulated in our own bubble. And I don't want that to be us. I want us to have a very active social life and to go out and have friends and do things. And she was all up for it, and so it was a beautiful way. And she became my biggest champion, my biggest teammate. I mean, my girlfriend is the one that supports me in everything I do, including the social aspect of things. And it's beautiful because, like I said, there's a party going on in my living room right now. I didn't do shit for that. She's the one who called them. I don't know what she probably messaged them, and that stuff just happens when you build the system, right? Because I front loaded the work and I did the hard stuff at the front. Then a lot of this is sort of on autopilot, and it's a great position to be in, man, because then that allows me to really focus on the things that do deserve my full attention all the time, which is my career, my projects, my success in that area, and my social life is never neglected, and I always have that component that is really important for all of us to have.
And I think one thing that people don't tend to recognize is that a thriving business life and a thriving social life often feed into each other. That you can't really, you can't really have a great business, or in theory you can, but it becomes so much more when you have a solid social component to your life. Not just because the biggest deals usually get done around the dinner table, but just because the people in your life help you find opportunities one way or another. Your business people usually wind up finding you social opportunities, and the people you meet through your social life find you business opportunities.
Yeah, 100%. And it's and for me, a lot of it is just that peace of mind that, and I think Michael talked about this at some point, and I very much saw it. I think I mentioned this at some point in the calls. Is before I started working for MOA, don't think, I think in the last 6 years, 5 or 6 years, I haven't had a single job that I had to sort of apply for, or like submit an application and go to an interview. Every job I have has been through a network, through some connection, through some friend, through some referral, right? And obviously that's not only has that been helpful so far, but I also know, and Michael actually talked about this because I think someone asked him at some point, he's like, Michael, if MOA disappeared, if it all went away, like what would you do? And he's like, well, obviously the very first thing I would do is not like I'm going to go hunting for jobs. The very first thing I would do is I would reach out to my entire network and be like, hey guys, I'm free, I'm open. Anybody got anything? What are you guys working on? Let me get on board with you. Like I would immediately reach out to my network, and I know that there will be opportunities there. So like in my head, specifically talk about like professional career, but also social stuff. Like your network is your biggest job security in that sense, right?
Yeah.
If you have a good network, is your biggest social security and your biggest job security. So it's wonderful, man, to have that component sort of dialed in your life.
Absolutely. And that, let's face it, that's the main reason why I wound up joining the full program of MOA myself,
Yeah.
because I knew after some pretty hefty changes in my life, I knew I needed that support network of connections, to take me wherever I wanted to go. Help not take me, but help me get wherever I wanted to go next. They say it's not what you know, it's who you know, but I really start,
Yeah.
it's both when it comes down to it, because who you know won't help you if you can't deliver on something, if you don't have the skills to be able to make something happen for the both of you. And yeah, it's slow going, but it feels like I'm starting to get that momentum. And
Of course. You're going to do great, man. You're already doing some great things out there in Australia.
Thank
Only
you.
a matter of time.
Indeed. And look, folks, if any of this talk about MOA has caught your interest, I have no doubt I'll be putting my affiliate link down in the comments or in the
Yeah.
show notes, depending on how you're accessing this.
Come on board.
Absolutely. So, what is in the future for Karim Gonzalez? What are some of the things that you're looking forward to next, and how you reckon you might be getting?
Yeah, man, this is actually the question that that landed me in the existentialist corner of the internet, because I mean I'm 35 years old at the moment. I'm still pretty young, and a bunch of things ahead. But the one thing I need to the one big question, the one right choice I'm looking for is the big question in my future is around family and children, right? I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to get married. I don't know if I want to have children. Like that's kind of the big question mark in my life at the moment. And at the moment the answer is so far no. Like at this point I just don't have that. I don't see myself going that direction now. I fully understanding that may change in the next 5 or 10 years. I might just get the parenting bite, and I might just like the start thinking about it and become excited about it, right? Who knows? But for now, the vision that I have laid out for myself is more on a professional and career trajectory, right? The big projects that I have going forward is I want most of my professional and academic work specifically to focus on studying, documenting, and preserving some of the most important battlefields in the world. Most of them are in Europe, but also a little bit outside of Europe, but most of them are in Europe. And I want to really be able to bring those to life and to put that work, not just from an academic perspective and just doing like research, but really bring them closer to people. And that involves also a little bit of historical tourism where we make them more accessible so that people can go to these places, see these places, know these places, walk these places, and be able to relive the stories of what happened there, get a better understanding of our history and the sacrifices that have been made to get us where we are. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done because this is one of those areas. I mean, if you go to some famous battlefields, you go to Gettysburg in the US, if you go to Gallipoli, probably, if you go to Waterloo, Hastings in the UK, these are wonderful battlefields that are extremely well studied, very well documented. There's a whole museum around it. There's information centers, there's brochures, there's apps that you can use to navigate the thing. Unfortunately, that's more the exception than the rule. The vast majority of historical battlefields are completely uncharted. We have like vague idea of where things happened, but when you go to these places, there's like nothing. Not even like a signpost, not even like a information center. Like there's nothing. Just plain fields as far as the eye can see. And I'm like, man, what a tragedy. Like, so one of the most important events in our history happened here, and there's not even a sign to acknowledge it. And that's a lot of the work that I kind of want to do. So that's a big project, of course. I mean, that you're talking like a, multi-year project and career for me to be able to do that. But that's what excites me. That's what excites me, the ability to do that. And then the other thing that excites me about it is being able to connect that with the coaching that I do, because I think there is that element, and I still haven't fully landed this idea, but I'm trying to also find that middle. I'm trying to find that connection between the work that I do with military history with a little bit of the coaching that I do in terms of masculinity, right? I think the concept of masculinity is something that we need to revisit a little bit. I think it has unfortunately been it's very misunderstood. It's unfortunately has also become a little bit corrupted in the sense that it has become vilified, right? It's almost like being male is almost like a disease these days. It's almost like you're a defective girl, right? Like being like masculinity also has been labeled as toxic, right? Toxic masculinity, right? Like that, this term of and I think that really stems from a little bit of a misunderstanding or just a lack of clarity of what exactly is to have a good and healthy masculinity. And I think military history has at least, it obviously it doesn't have all the answers, but it has a seat at the table, because what happened in history is a big part. There's a reason why these men, and it's mostly men, military history is mostly men. There's a reason why that happens, and why it's mostly men, and why it's something that speaks so loudly to many of us. So like I said, I haven't fully sorted out how I would combine the two of them, but I would love to contribute to the literature of masculinity and the manosphere, if you will, like this online space about men, from that angle. What can we learn about men? As men, what can we learn from military history? What are some of the lessons there for us? And I would love to bridge that and to connect those. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but that's a big ambition I have to somehow find a bridge there.
Indeed. No, you can only work out how you're going to do it by taking the initial steps and trying to answer the questions that are in front of you, I suppose.
Figure it out as we go.
No worries. One thing that I am a little bit curious about, especially as a guy who was widowed a few years back, who is looking at his early life and what led to him being in relationship and in marriage through a lens of what do I want to do differently going forward? Being in a relationship that is not necessarily about, that is not necessarily leading to marriage and kids. And I mean, I married a woman who was 35 years my senior, so kids were not part of it for me. And I'm still trying to work out whether or not that is something that I want to aim for, or perhaps even take on faith that, it could happen anyway. What does being in, a relationship at the moment look like for the two of you? What are the important things, and how do you have a thriving relationship?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, man, because I would say I like to use the analogy that Orion Tarband uses in the Value of Others. Did you read that book?
Not yet.
Oh no, yeah, man, you should get to that one. I think that's the best book on relationship that has been published in the last 5 years. Ever since The Rational Man, probably. It's incredible. It's such a good book. And he gives the analogy he gives like nautical analogies about how you build your ship, and then people become passengers on your ship, and that's like an analogy for a relationship. And I like it because he very well described what my relationship looks like today. My relationship right now is I built a ship, right? And my girlfriend got on my ship. She's a passenger on my ship. And right now it's smooth sailing because right now we are very compatible in what we're trying to do. And the things that at the moment we're in our lives, we're kind of heading in the same direction. But we are on a collision course because my girlfriend is very much settled on the idea of want to have a family and children and all that. She's still young. I mean, she's 27, I think. Yeah, she's 27. So we've still got a few years to sort of figure it out. But with what I mentioned earlier, I just don't see myself, at least at this point, heading that direction. I mean, it's just like a bit of a. It's almost like this relationship is a little bit of an on a timer, right? And that's obviously been difficult to navigate. But we're focusing a little bit on what we have now. And right now, we're extremely compatible in the sense that for us, for both of us, right now, our career and professional development is really the most important thing. So I'm supporting her in her projects and her work as much as I can, and she's also doing the same with me. So right now, it's wonderful in that sense. We're each other's best allies and supporters and teammates. So that's why it's working really, really well. But there's definitely we're heading for collision in a few years if we don't, if it doesn't line up, and which is fine, like it doesn't have to, and I don't want her to give up something that is going to be meaningful and fulfilling for her, and also I don't want to make life choices. I don't want to live somebody else's life just to please them, right? So if we collide, we collide, and that'll probably be the end of it. But for now, we very much are aligned in that sense, and also socially as well. And that was something that was a little bit of a hiccup to get over, because obviously, as you can imagine, she was not the biggest fan of me being around, swimsuit models and influencers and very attractive women all the time. But we worked through that, and she made some very fair request of how. Because I told her also, it's like this is also my job, it's like I can't stop doing it, like I have to do this. But I think we talked it out, and we found a good middle ground where she felt that she felt respected, and she felt that I was giving her rightful place as my partner, and to sort of not trigger her insecurities around it. And then it was wonderful. And then she, like I even told you, man, like some of my female friends have become even better friends with her. It's almost like she stole many of my female friends, right? Because she's much more social than I am, and like I've introduced her to all my female friends, and now she's better friends with many of them than I am. She sees them more often than I do. She talks to them more than I do. I'm like, damn. But that's something we had to sort out to make this work, and for her to be comfortable with me being around all these attractive women all the time.
Fantastic. Well, as we wrap this up, I just pretty much have two questions left. Firstly, if you could suggest something to someone who was looking to steel themselves a little bit of thrivery back past external expectations or their own fears forcing them to play small, what would you suggest they do?
For someone who's trying to steal a little bit of, what was the word you used? It was
I call it thrivery, a combination of thieving and thriving, basically. Thievery and thriving. But yeah,
right.
Someone who wants to commit a little bit of thrivery within the next...
Okay. This show. I mean, one thing I would say is, and this is actually a principle that we apply in MOI, but I think it holds true because I've applied it the same way in all the endeavors of my life. Beyond the social aspect, I've applied it really well in that sense. And it's the idea of, at the beginning, where you're learning something, where you're going into a project or an endeavor or whatever it is, no creativity, just copy success. Just copy success. Just look for who are the people who have already done this, who are the successful guys who are doing this, and just copy success. Leave the creativity, the ego aside a little bit, and you can get to that. At some point, you can become that creative mind, but at the beginning, just copy success. I mean, like, even recently, like, I think you saw my channel. I started my new Instagram page with all these reels. Man, it's already taking off. I already accumulated 1.2 million views in 1 month. That's insane, bro. 1.2 million views. And guess what? Every video you see there, it's a video that I sort of copied. I copied the idea from someone else, and then I replicated it as best as I could. I'm just copying success. And every time I do it, it works. Like, it always works. When I copy success, it works. And then I get creative later on. But at the beginning, it's like, no creativity. Let me just find who are the guys, who are the people who know what they're talking about, who have done this before. Let me just try to emulate what they've done. And I think that's a pretty good rule for thrivery.
Yes, it does seem like, the idea that's right up the alley for this show: good creators copy, great creators steal.
I like that. Yeah, very much on board with that. I'm very much on board with that.
And I've no doubt I've stolen it from somewhere. It's almost a truism nowadays. Okay, but the last question, so that you can get back to your lady and your awesome party in the living room, where can people go to find out more about Karim Gonzalez after listening to or watching this episode?
Instagram really is my main network. Karim, KarimGL4. That's my Instagram handle. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. I'm super active on it. Again, partly because of my job. That's I get 100 DMs every day from all the guys that we coach, and so yeah, I'm super active on Instagram. That's always the best place to reach me, and yeah, I'm super responsive there on the platform.
Karim Gonzalez, you right proper felon of flourishing, mate. Thank you very much for coming on Steel Success.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you for having me, Rob, and keep crushing it, man.
You're welcome. Will do.